First contact under fire. Sergeant Nora Reeves pressed her back against the crumbling wall. The acrid smell of plasma burns filling her nostrils. The Draxian patrol had pinned down her reconnaissance team in the ruins of Outpost Zeta, and there, ammunition wouldn't last another hour. "Status report, Garrison," she whispered into her comm unit, eyes scanning the smoke-filled horizon. "Not good, Sarge," came the crackling reply. "Torres is patching up Diaz, and we're down to our last charge packs. Those Draxian bastards have the high ground on the eastern ridge." Nora checked her weapons display and grimaced. 23% charge remaining. She'd seen worse odds, but not by much. Hold position. "I'm going to flank through the western corridor. Maybe I can." A flash of movement caught her eye. Something darted between the ruins, too graceful to be a Draxian soldier. Their movements were always mechanical, efficient but lacking fluidity. This was different. Nora raised her rifle, finger hovering over the trigger. Through the haze emerged a figure that made her hesitate. Humanoid, but distinctly not human. Tall and lithe with skin that shimmered with a faint violet iridescence in the dying sunlight. The being's features were delicate yet strong, framed by hair that seemed to flow like liquid silver. But what truly caught Nora's attention were the eyes, amber with flecks of gold that seemed to see right through her. The stranger raised empty hands in a universal gesture of peace. "You are not Draxian," the being said, voice melodic with an accent Nora couldn't place. "I am Ilarion of the Thalian Concordat. I seek allies against our common enemy." Nora kept her weapon steady. "How convenient. You show up just as we're about to be overrun." A smile played at the corners of Ilarion's mouth. "I've been observing your tactics. Impressive for a species with such limited sensory capacity." "Limited?" Nora scoffed. "We've managed to hold our own." "Barely," Ilarion replied, tilting his head. "The Draxian forces are preparing to deploy thermal detonators to flush you out. They've positioned 3 squads to intercept when you flee." Nora narrowed her eyes. "And how would you know that?" Ilarion gestured to a small device on his wrist. "My people have been monitoring Draxian communications for cycles. Your Earth forces are new to this conflict, but we have been fighting them for generations." A sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Dust and debris rained down as Nora's comm unit erupted with panicked voices. "Sarge, they're using some kind of heat-seeking projectiles. We can't—" The transmission cut to static. "My team," Nora hissed, preparing to dash back to their position. Ilarion caught her arm, his touch surprisingly warm. "There's no time. I can help, but you must trust me." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of something familiar in the utterly alien. "Fine," Nora conceded, "but any funny business, and you'll find out how limited humans really are." Ilarion's expression softened. "I would expect nothing less." Together they moved through the ruins, Ilarion guiding them through passages Nora would have overlooked. His movements were silent, graceful, each step placed with deliberate precision. "The Draxians cannot detect my biosignature," Ilarion explained quietly. "It allows me to move unseen among them." "Convenient evolutionary advantage," Nora muttered. "Not evolution." "Adaptation," Ilarion corrected. "My people have modified ourselves to survive this war." They reached a vantage point overlooking the Draxian position. Nora could see her team pinned down, returning fire sporadically as mechanical soldiers advanced methodically. "Here," Ilarion handed her a small spherical device. "This will disrupt their targeting systems temporarily." Nora weighed the unfamiliar technology in her palm. "And I should trust this why?" "Because," Ilarion said simply, "I find your species fascinating, especially you. It would be a shame to see such potential extinguished." Despite herself, Nora felt her cheeks warm at the unexpected compliment. Flattery will get you nowhere in a war zone. It's not flattery if it's true, Ilarion replied, those amber eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. A moment was broken by another explosion. Without further hesitation, Nora activated the device and hurled it toward the Draxian forces. It detonated in a flash of blue light, and the mechanical soldiers immediately began moving erratically, firing at shadows. Now, Ilarion urged, and together they sprinted toward Nora's team. As they fought side by side, Nora couldn't help but notice how perfectly they complemented each other's movements, as if they'd trained together for years instead of meeting moments ago. When the last Draxian fell and her team was safely extracted, Nora turned to thank the mysterious alien, only to find Ilarion watching her with an expression that mirrored her own confusion and fascination. "This," Ilarion said softly, "is the beginning of something unexpected." Whispers between Worlds Base Commander Rilland frowned at the holographic display, showing Ilarion standing calmly between two armed guards. "So you're telling me this? Thalion just appeared in the middle of a firefight and saved your squad?" Nora stood at attention, trying to maintain professional composure. "Yes, sir." Ilarion provided tactical intelligence and technology that allowed us to escape the Draxian ambush with minimal casualties. "And we're supposed to trust this alien, why exactly?" Rilland's weathered face creased with suspicion. "Permission to." "Speak freely, sir." Rilland nodded curtly. "The Draxians have pushed us back on 3 fronts. We've lost 2 outposts in as many weeks. The Thalions have been fighting them for decades. We need allies, and Ilarion is offering one." After a tense moment, Rilland sighed. "Fine. Your alien friend gets provisional clearance. But Sergeant, this is on you. Any problems, and I'll have both your heads." "Understood, sir." Outside the command center, Nora found Ilarion examining a bulletin board with Earth recruitment posters, head tilted in curiosity. "Your species uses imagery of your young to encourage fighting?" Ilarion asked, gesturing to a poster showing children playing safely, protected by soldiers. "We fight to protect what matters," Nora replied. "Family, home. Interesting." Ilarion studied her face. "The Thalion Concordat fights for knowledge, for the preservation of consciousness across the stars. Different reasons, same enemy," Nora said with a shrug. "Come on, I'll introduce you to my squad." In the mess hall, Garrison and Torres looked up from their meals with undisguised curiosity as Nora approached with Ilarion. "So the rumors are true," Garrison said, eyeing Ilarion. "We've got ourselves an alien ally. This is Specialist Garrison." "And Medic Torres," Nora introduced. "The grumpy one in the corner with the bandaged leg is Diaz." Ilarion bowed slightly. "Your bravery is noted. Few species stand against the Draxians with such ... determination." Torres snorted. "That's a polite way of saying we're outgunned and outnumbered." "Yet you persist," Ilarion said. "This is worthy of respect." As the day progressed, Nora showed Ilarion around the base. The alien moved with a grace that drew stares from other soldiers, but Ilarion seemed oblivious to the attention, focused instead on Nora's explanations of human military structure. That evening, they sat on the observation deck, the planet's 3 moons casting a silvery glow over the landscape. "Your world is beautiful," Ilarion said quietly. "The Draxians would strip it bare for resources, as they attempted with Thalia." "What's your home like?" Nora asked. "Once it was a world of crystal spires and floating gardens." Ilarion's voice grew distant. "Now, much of it lies in ruins. Those of us who remain fight to reclaim what was lost." Without thinking, Nora placed her hand over Ilarion's. "I'm sorry." Ilarion looked at their joined hands, then at Nora with an expression of wonder. "Physical contact is rare among my people, reserved for moments of great significance." Nora started to pull away, but Ilarion gently tightened their grip. It is ... unwelcome. The moment hung between them, fragile and precious. The Draxians are planning something, Ilarion said finally. My scouts have detected unusual movement near the orbital refinery. They appear to be gathering forces. The refinery is our main fuel source, Nora said, suddenly alert. If they take it, your resistance would end within days, Ilarion. Finished. My ship carries technology that could help us infiltrate their defenses, but I would need a team familiar with the refinery's layout. Nora's mind was already racing with tactical possibilities. I'll speak with Commander Rilland immediately. As they stood to leave, Ilarion hesitated. Nora, there is something you should know. Among my people, I am considered ... unconventional. My interest in other species, in you specifically, is not typical. I've never been much for typical myself, Nora replied with a half-smile. Ilarion's amber eyes seemed to glow in the moonlight. Then perhaps that is why I find myself drawn to you. You are ... unexpected. As they walked back to the command center, their shoulders occasionally brushing, Nora realized that something fundamental had shifted between them, a connection forming that transcended their different worlds and the war that had brought them together. The orbital gambit, the Thalian shuttle hummed with unfamiliar energy as it climbed through the atmosphere. Nora checked her tactical display one last time, reviewing the mission parameters. Beside her, Ilarion piloted with fluid movements, silver. Hair tied back, expression intensely focused. Approaching orbital zone, Ilarion announced. Cloaking systems engaged. Nora turned to her squad garrison, Torres, and a reluctantly cleared-for-duty Diaz. Remember, this is recon and sabotage. Only. We identify the Draxian command node, plant the disruptors, and extract. No heroics. Speaking of heroics, Diaz muttered, glancing at Ilarion. How do we know this isn't a trap? Ilarion didn't look away from the controls. If I wanted you dead, I would have left you in the ruins of Outpost Zeta. Fair point, Garrison conceded with a chuckle. The refinery grew larger in the viewport, a sprawling structure of industrial modules orbiting the planet like a metallic moon. Several Draxian vessels patrolled the perimeter, their angular designs reminiscent of predatory insects. I'm detecting increased security protocols, Ilarion said, frowning at the readouts. They've installed quantum resonance scanners since my last intelligence report. Can they detect us? Nora asked. Not yet, but docking will alert them unless... Ilarion's fingers danced across the controls. There's a maintenance airlock on the southern quadrant. Minimal security, but it will require a spacewalk, Nora nodded. We've trained for zero-G operations. Get us as close as you can. The shuttle glided silently toward the massive structure, settling into a shadow cast by a solar array. Ilarion engaged the magnetic locks, securing them to the refinery's outer hull. The airlock is 50 meters across the exterior, Ilarion said, retrieving. A sleek suit of armor, unlike the bulky EVA gear the humans were donning. Once inside, we'll have approximately 20 minutes before the Draxians detect the unauthorized entry. As they prepared for the spacewalk, Nora noticed Ilarion watching her with an unreadable expression. Something on your mind? She asked. I was calculating our survival probability, Ilarion replied. It is ... lower than I would prefer. Nora smiled. That's why we bring luck along with our ammunition. Luck is not a quantifiable resource, Ilarion said, but there was a hint of amusement in those amber eyes. Maybe not where you come from, Nora said, sealing her helmet. But here, sometimes it's all we've got. The spacewalk was tense, but uneventful. They moved like shadows across the hull, magnetic boots keeping them anchored as they approached the airlock. Torres bypassed the security systems with Ilarion's tech, and they slipped inside just as a Draxian patrol ship passed overhead. Once inside, they moved through service corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where Draxian soldiers marched in perfect synchronization. The architecture was cold, utilitarian, built for efficiency rather than comfort. Command node should be 2 levels up, Nora whispered, checking the schematics Ilarion had provided. They reached a junction when suddenly alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor in an ominous glow. "That's not good," Garrison muttered. "They've detected the breach," Ilarion said, checking a device on their wrist. "But not our specific location, yet." "New plan," Nora decided quickly. "Garrison, Torres head to the secondary target and plant your disruptors. Diaz, take point and secure our exit route. Ilarion and I will handle the command node." The team split up, moving with practiced efficiency. Nora and Ilarion advanced toward the upper levels, encountering minimal resistance until they reached a sealed doorway marked with Draxian symbols. "This is it," Ilarion said. "Beyond lies the neural processor that coordinates their attack patterns." As Ilarion worked to breach the security measures, Nora kept watch, pulse rifle ready. The silence between them was charged with unspoken tension. "If this works," Ilarion said quietly, "it will give your people time to evacuate the settlements. In the northern hemisphere, the Draxians will be temporarily blind." "And what about your people?" Nora asked. "What do you get out of this?" Ilarion paused, those remarkable eyes meeting hers. "A chance to see if there is more to existence than endless war. A possibility I had not considered until I met you." The admission hung in the air between them, intimate and vulnerable despite their surroundings. Before Nora could respond, the door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. The command center was a marvel of alien technology pulsing with blue light, holographic displays showing troop movements and attack vectors. At the center stood a crystalline structure that thrummed with energy. "The command node," Ilarion breathed. "Place your disruptors there." Nora approached cautiously, removing the devices from her tactical vest. As she placed them on the crystal surface, the structure pulsed brighter, as if sensing her presence. "Hurry," Ilarion urged. "We have less than 5 minutes before." The words were cut short as a blast door slammed shut behind them, sealing them in. "It's a trap," Nora realized, drawing her weapon. "No," Ilarion said, expression grim. "It's worse. The system is initiating a purge sequence. If we don't disable it now, the entire station will self-destruct," Nora finished, "with my team still on board." Their eyes met in silent understanding of what needed to be done. Together they turned to face the command node, the countdown already begun. Their mission now a desperate race against time, sanctuary and chaos. The command node pulsed with increasing intensity as Nora frantically worked to disable the purge sequence. Beside her, Ilarion's fingers moved across alien interfaces with practiced precision, silver hair falling forward as they hunched over the controls. "The encryption is adaptive," Ilarion muttered. "It's learning our patterns faster than we can." "Bypass them." Nora keyed her comm unit. "Garrison, Torres, abort mission. Hit to the extraction point immediately." Static crackled before Garrison's voice broke through. "Already moving, Sarge. Diaz says the exit route is compromised. We're taking the maintenance shafts." A tremor shook the station, causing them both to grab the console for stability. Warning lights flashed as the first sequence of controlled detonations began in the outer sectors. "We're running out of time," Nora said, glancing at Ilarion. "Can you override it?" "Not completely," Ilarion replied, expression grim. "But I can redirect the sequence. Channel the destruction away from your team's escape route." "Do it." Ilarion's hands blurred across the interface. "This will trigger an immediate response from the central system. We will have seconds to escape. Then we better make them count, Nora said, readying her weapon. With a final command, Ilarion activated the override. The crystal structure flared blindingly bright, then dimmed to a dull pulse. Immediately, klaxons blared as sections of the station began to seal off. Now! Ilarion shouted, grabbing Nora's arm and pulling her toward a maintenance hatch that had previously been hidden behind a holographic panel. They sprinted through narrow service corridors as explosions rocked the station around them. Twice they encountered Draxian security forces, mechanical soldiers that moved with deadly precision. Each time, they fought in perfect synchronization. Nora's tactical training, complementing Ilarion's fluid combat style. My team? Nora demanded between breaths as they paused at a junction. Ilarion checked a device on their wrist. Life signs moving toward the southern docking bay. If they reached the emergency shuttles, another explosion, closer this time, sent them tumbling to the floor. A support beam crashed down, narrowly missing them, but blocking their path forward. We need another route, Nora said, scanning the smoke-filled corridor. Ilarion pointed to a small access panel. This leads to the environmental control section. It's less secure, but less secure works for me, Nora replied, already prying. Open the panel. They crawled through maintenance ducts as the station continued to tear itself apart around them. The air grew thin, emergency systems failing sector by sector. When they finally emerged into a larger chamber, both were gasping for breath. The room appeared to be some kind of research laboratory, abandoned in haste when the alarm sounded. Strange equipment and specimen containers lined the walls. What is this place? Nora asked, moving cautiously between workstations. Draxian bioweapons research, Ilarion said, examining a console. They've been studying various species, looking for weaknesses to exploit. Nora noticed a terminal still active, displaying schematics of what appeared to be a planetary defense system. Look at this. Are those the coordinates for Earth? Ilarion confirmed, expression darkening. And Thalia. They're planning simultaneous strikes. A final massive explosion shook the laboratory, knocking out the primary lighting. Emergency illumination cast eerie shadows across the alien equipment. The station's breaking apart. Nora realized, we need to get to an escape pod. Ilarion checked their communication device. The nearest functional pods are 2 sectors away. We won't make it in time. Nora refused to accept defeat. There has to be something. A shuttle, a maintenance vehicle, anything. Their eyes met in the dim light, desperation giving way to grim determination. Then Ilarion's expression changed, a flash of inspiration. The stasis chambers, they said suddenly. This facility was designed to preserve specimens during transport. If we can activate 2 chambers and modify the ejection protocol, we could ride out the destruction, Nora finished. Like high-tech lifeboats. They worked frantically, reprogramming the stasis units as the laboratory around them began to buckle and warp. Warning signals flashed as the station's structural integrity reached critical levels. It's ready, Ilarion announced. But there's one more thing you should know. These chambers were designed for extended preservation. Once activated, they cannot be opened from the inside. We will be completely vulnerable until found. Nora looked at the coffin-like chamber, then back at Ilarion. So we're putting our lives in each other's hands. Yes, Ilarion said simply. Do you trust me enough for that? The laboratory ceiling groaned ominously. There was no time left for doubts. I trust you, Nora said, and was surprised to realize how deeply she meant it. Before climbing into the sea chamber, she hesitated, then pulled Ilarion close. Their lips met in a brief, desperate kiss, a promise, a question, and an answer all at once. For luck, she whispered against Ilarion's skin. The alien's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with an emotion Nora couldn't name, but felt reflected in her own heart. "Until we meet again," Ilarion replied softly as the stasis chamber sealed. Around her, in the cold embrace of suspended animation took hold. Nora's last conscious thought was of amber eyes and the unexpected warmth of alien hands holding hers as their sanctuary collapsed around them. Stars-aligned consciousness returned, slowly like waves lapping at the shore of Nora's mind. First came sensation, warmth, the gentle hum of machinery, a softness of fabric against her skin. Then sound, distant voices, unfamiliar, yet somehow not threatening. Finally, light as her eyes fluttered open. She lay in a medical bay, unlike any she'd seen before. Crystalline structures grew from the walls, pulsing with soft light. The ceiling above was transparent, revealing a breathtaking view of stars and nebulae swirling in patterns she didn't recognize. "She's awake," a melodic voice announced. A figure moved into her field of vision, not Ilarion, but clearly Thalion, with the same iridescent skin and graceful features. This one appeared older, with intricate markings along their temples. "Where?" "Can I?" Nora asked, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Where's Ilarion?" "You are aboard the Thalion vessel Luminor," the elder Thalion replied. "I am healer Valorin. Ilarion is well, and has been most insistent about your recovery." As if summoned by the words, Ilarion appeared in the doorway. Their silver hair was longer now, adorned with small crystals that caught the light. Upon seeing Nora awake, their expression transformed with such naked joy that it made her breath catch. "You should have told me she was conscious," Ilarion admonished the healer, moving swiftly to Nora's side. "You needed rest yourself," Valorin replied with a knowing smile before discreetly departing. Ilarion took Nora's hand, those amber eyes searching her face. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been asleep for 100 years, Nora said. "How long was I out?" 3 of your Earth weeks, Ilarion replied. "The stasis chambers protected us from the station's destruction, but your physiology responded differently to the suspension process." "My team?" Nora asked urgently. "Garrison, Torres, Diaz?" "Safe," Ilarion assured her. "They reached the emergency shuttles and returned to your base. They believe we perished in the explosion." Nora absorbed this information slowly. "So the entire Earth Defense Force thinks I'm dead?" "For now," Ilarion said. "There is much to explain, but first you should regain your strength." Over the following days, as Nora recovered aboard the Thalion vessel, Ilarion revealed the full scope of what had happened. The information they'd discovered in the Draxian laboratory had confirmed the aliens' plans for a coordinated attack on both Earth and Thalia. The Thalion High Council had dispatched their fleet to intercept the Draxian armada before it could reach either world. "We're on the brink of the final confrontation," Ilarion explained as they stood on the observation deck, watching Thalion vessels prepare for battle. "The Draxians have committed their entire force to this assault. And that's why you kept me isolated," Nora realized. "You needed time to position your fleet without alerting Earth forces, who might have interfered." Ilarion nodded. "Politics between our worlds are complicated. Your commanders do not fully trust our intentions. Can you blame them?" Nora asked. "Trust is earned, not given." "I know," Ilarion said softly, "which is why I've arranged transport for you to return to your base. You can warn them about the coming attack, help coordinate our forces." Nora studied Ilarion's face, noting the conflict in those expressive eyes. "But that's not what you want, is it?" "What I want?" Ilarion began, then hesitated. "What I want has never been simple. My position among my people, my duty to the Concordat, these things have always defined me until I met you." Nora stepped closer. "And now?" Now I find myself contemplating possibilities that once seemed impossible. A future where our worlds stand united, where perhaps we could. The moment was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the ship. A young Thalian officer rushed onto the deck. "Commander Ilarion, Draxian vessels have broken through our outer perimeter. They're targeting the Earth colonies directly." Ilarion's expression hardened into resolute determination. "Prepare my shuttle. Alert the fleet to reposition." The officer saluted and departed. Ilarion turned back to Nora, conflict evident in every line of their body. "Go," Nora said, "but I'm coming with you." "It will be dangerous." "I'm a soldier, remember? Danger is part of the job description." A ghost of a smile touched Ilarion's lips. "Very well. Together, then." The battle that followed would later be recorded in both Earth and Thalian histories as the Convergence, the day two civilizations fought as one against a common enemy. Nora's tactical knowledge of Earth defense systems complemented Ilarion's command of the Thalian fleet, creating strategies the methodical Draxians could not anticipate. From the command shuttle, they directed forces across multiple fronts, their movements synchronized as if they'd commanded together for years. When a Draxian dreadnought broke through their lines, targeting the main human settlement, Ilarion made a decision that would change everything. "We need to disable their primary weapons array," they announced. "It requires direct interface with their systems." "You mean boarding their flagship?" Nora asked incredulously. "That's suicide." "Not with the right team," Ilarion replied, eyes locked with hers. "Not with you." The boarding operation was chaotic, desperate. They fought their way through mechanical soldiers to reach the Draxian command center. Using the intelligence they'd gathered from the orbital station, they managed to infiltrate the central processing unit and upload a virus designed to disrupt the hive mind, controlling the Draxian forces. As the flagship began to destabilize around them, they raced back toward their shuttle. An explosion rocked the corridor, sending debris crashing down. Nora pushed Ilarion clear, but couldn't move fast enough herself. Pain exploded through her leg as a support beam pinned her to the floor. "Go!" she shouted at Ilarion. "Complete the mission." Instead, Ilarion returned to her side, using inhuman strength to lift the beam. "I did not cross galaxies to lose you now," they said through gritted teeth. Together they limped to the shuttle, escaping moments before the Draxian flagship imploded, sending a cascade of failures through the enemy fleet. Victory, hard-won and costly, belonged to the United Forces of Earth and Thalia. In the aftermath, as reconstruction began and diplomatic channels officially opened between the two worlds, Nora found Ilarion standing alone on a balcony overlooking the newly established Joint Command Center. The setting sun cast golden light across their silver hair. "The High Council has offered me a new position," Ilarion said without turning. "Ambassador to Earth, the first of its kind." "Congratulations," Nora said, moving to stand beside them. "You've earned it. There is a condition," Ilarion continued. "A personal one I have set myself." They turned to face her fully. "The position is meaningless unless you are willing to explore what lies between us, this connection that defies explanation." Nora felt her heart quicken. "Are you proposing a diplomatic alliance or something more personal?" "Both," Ilarion said, with unexpected directness. "My people believe in cosmic alignment, that when two souls recognize each other across impossible distances, it is because they are meant to create something new together." "Something new," Nora repeated, thinking of all they had already created. Trust where there should have been suspicion, hope where there had been only survival. "I like the sound of that." She reached out, taking Ilarion's hands in hers. "There." Fingers intertwined, different yet perfectly complementary. "My people have a saying too," she said softly. "Home is not a place. but the people who make you feel like you belong. As the stars began to appear in the twilight sky above them, some familiar, some strange, all part of the same vast universe, they sealed their commitment with a kiss that bridged worlds. Not an ending, but a beginning. Two unlikely souls creating their own constellation in a galaxy, finally turning toward peace out in the command center below. Human and Thalian officers worked side by side, the first generation of many who would grow up knowing that differences could be strengths, that understanding could triumph over fear, and that sometimes the most unexpected encounters could lead to the most beautiful journeys. Ilarion and Nora stood together at the threshold of that future, ready to write the next chapter of their story among the stars.